Hello. I couldn't be more thrilled than to open the 2021 IAB Brand Disruption Summit with Rob Schutz, the founder and CEO of Ro. Now, when I first encountered Ro, it was known as Roman. We're going to talk a little bit more about the evolutionary path. But one of the reasons we wanted to open with Ro and Rob today is the company really represents the intersection of a lot of the most important trends that we'll be talking about throughout this conference, and that really represented the past year or two in the growth of the direct brand economy. Among the things that that Ro has really been a pioneer in is, growing out of an original space into a more expanded space, introducing new product and service lines, growing into the brick and mortar environment from a D2C native environment. A lot of things that are worth picking up on. This is a return engagement with Rob, who's been on our stage in the early days and participated in some of our earliest research on the direct brand economy. So, Rob, yes. I thank you for that. I thank you for your reappearance.
Thank you for having me back, Randall.
Yeah, I even thank you more for the growth and evolution of the company, because it really gives us a lot of meat that we can talk about and use to help educate an audience of both big brands and smaller brands. Let's start with talking about your evolution, because when I first encountered you, you were known as Roman. Things have changed quite a lot. You changed your name, you evolved your product line. Give us an overview of what's happened over the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and thank you again for having me, Randall. I think, as you said, we started as Roman. We started with our first treatment for erectile dysfunction. We always knew that we wanted to build a new healthcare system, but it was 25 years in the future. So we were always very stubborn on this vision of wanting to build the future of healthcare, but very, I would say, flexible on the details of how we get there. So, the vision of Ro is we want to become a patient's first call for all of their healthcare needs. And so we started with Roman and ED, and we learned over the course of time from our customers, from our patients, and from data, the new areas that we should push into. So we are now really the only healthcare company in the country that can seamlessly integrate telehealth, in-home care, labs, diagnostics, and pharmacy services. And so while most folks kind of know us as launching with Roman and men's sexual health, they're surprised that at this point, Ro has 20 plus different conditions that are offered end to end. We have a cash pay mail order pharmacy with thousands of generics. We can now send a provider or a test kit to a patient's home for additional diagnostics. And we do all this outside of insurance in a cash pay environment. So come a long way in just under 4 years, but really, really excited about the opportunities that are ahead of us. And, everything with COVID and from the evolution of the space, things certainly have accelerated, but we think there's a lot of opportunity to build the future of healthcare.
Now, are you still specializing in men, or is it men and women now?
So Ro is our umbrella brand. Under Ro, we have a large variety of digital clinics. So we have Roman for our men's health clinic. We have Rory and Modern Fertility for women's health and hormone testing. We have Zero for smoking cessation. We have Ro Pharmacy for our generic pharmacy services. We have Ro Mind, which is for mental health, anxiety, and depression. We have a derm line that is rolled out as well. So we focus on kind of a lot of these different pain points, and then however someone wants to enter the ecosystem.
Literal pain points.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever people actually care about, we want them to be able to have a tailored experience that's really perfect for them. And then once they're in the ecosystem, they can kind of take a look around and realize they're standing in the middle of a digital hospital, and they get all these different things done with one single vertically integrated, primary care platform.
So I want to go into more about what you're doing now, but I want to dive into something that's ever present. It's like right now in people's minds. You recently announced a partnership with Walmart and a rollout to 4,600. I think it's all of their stores in the U.S. Now, a pandemic lockdown would not seem to be the optimum time to plan a giant brick and mortar expansion. So I kind of want to know, why was this the time that you decided to move into physical retail in such a big way.
Yeah. The retail launch with Walmart was, our first foray here. We launched in almost all stores, 97% of stores this summer, and also on Walmart.com. And what was exciting is as we started thinking about the retail strategy prior to the pandemic, Walmart recognized very early on that we already had the infrastructure in place to be able to operationally launch with such a large rollout. And then on the brand side, thanks to all of our national advertising, we already had a pretty well-known brand at a national level as well. So they've been a pretty incredible partner in lining up this national rollout that kind of matches to our existing national footprint.
A really stupid question. Who called whom? What happened first?
Our team, we have a retail team who is always kind of talking with partners and having discussions. I think, any company that's looking to go in this space will talk to everybody and take a lot of different meetings and start to just understand where there's good overlaps, where it makes sense, where it's strategic. And for us, Walmart made a ton of sense because, people don't realize the average age of a patient on the Ro platform is 46 years old, and 40% of Ro patients are over the age of 50. And as we looked at the demographics of the different retail partners, the average age of a Walmart shopper is also 46 years old. There's like really, really good demographic overlap. And we knew from data that about half of Ro patients were already shopping at Walmart. And then as you looked at just the breadth of Walmart stores, I think the stat is something crazy, like 90% of all Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart. Plus, 30 million plus people going up and down the aisles every month. It became pretty clear, like there are a few better investments that are as cost effective than that type of billboard you could have at Walmart.
So I think you've answered the question that I wanted to ask, but I want to probe a little bit more on it, which is with a lot of the D2C brands that we've been working with and studying over the years, yours included, when they first launched, they were often seen as competitors to those brick and mortar retail partners. Look, we've created an alternative way of goods and services into creation and delivering them to human beings without having to go through the cumbersome processes of dealing with brick and mortar. So it kind of, I was thinking, okay, well, why did Walmart see you as a partner rather than a competitor? And I think that those demographic answers you were giving are part of it. But
yeah. No, I think it's a great push, Randall, and I think some of this started to learn a bit, for the 5 years prior to Ro, I led growth marketing at BarkBox. We had a similar launch in retail with Target, but I think what I've come to realize is, retailers, they're incredibly data driven. They know what their customers are looking for, right? And they want to make sure they are offering the goods and services that cater to those wants and needs, and not asking people to go elsewhere to get those things. So in many regards, adding these D2C products makes a ton of sense when there's existing demand and the retailer knows their customers are already looking for those. And it also creates, if you go into a Walmart or Target, you see these end caps, right? It creates like this end of aisle, like mini boutique experience that's great for discovery, that's great for the brand, obviously, but it's also great for the retailers because they're giving something new and interesting and different to the shopper. So you combine that with the ability to, at retail, offer more exclusive products. Like, for example, our Roman swipes for premature ejaculation, it is a wholly owned product of ours and isn't available anywhere else outside of our warehouse. So it's really exclusive supply for Walmart to be able to offer that in store as well. And again,
so
the fact that we're advertising those already and then they're able to capture that demand in person is powerful.
So one of the things that's been, kind of deeply in the news over the past 6-12 months, separate and apart from the pandemic, but specific to the world that we all inhabit, has to do with channel conflict. In fact, Apple just made some significant changes under a lot of pressure in the Apple Store because of the degree to which it was preventing app partners from doing other things outside the store. So what lessons or what principles did you and Walmart bring together around managing channel conflict between the Walmart channel, which is enormous, but also your O&O channel, which has been your bread and butter over the past 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, those are the types of discussions that happen at the team level when you're putting the POs together and you're hammering out the details of the partnership. I think that, for the most part, the relationship has been really, really strong, where Walmart kind of has their targets and where they need pricing to be and packaging to be, et cetera. And that does not supersede what you will do on your own site. You can kind of run those as concurrent businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I think, though, there are differences, and rolling out in retail is a new consumer and patient experience, right? Like, there are a lot of unique considerations that need to go into being successful. Like, as you mentioned, maybe pricing on site versus pricing at Walmart. That's something that needs to be very thoughtful. Another one that I personally found very fascinating was just how packaging differs on the shelf versus, on the website, where packaging in retail needs to be eye-popping, right? It needs to catch a shopper's eye.
Yep.
And it's really important. So, for example, we changed the box size for Roman swipes to take up more real estate on the shelf and make it more eye-catching. And we also went with like a dark navy color there, because the darker color actually hides like wear and tear on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And then similar for the supplements, we made the bottles white because the bottles, like white bottles, tend to hide dust that might be coming up from the floors. Just very different things than you would plan for on like the D2C or the e-commerce side, because our packaging on D2C is much more minimal, because you can tell a much broader story on multiple, LPs, multiple landing pages and product description pages, and then you ship the product. So a lot of great partnership there with Walmart to kind of figure out the best practices and bring those to life.
Well, so that was my next question, because I love diving into the, having written about this a lot, I love diving into the nitty gritty as a reporter. Yeah. So just that one fact, graphic design and product design for physical shelf wouldn't have been something that's native to the original Roman and Row.
Totally.
Because you're dealing with D2C. So where did it come from? Walmart? Was it kind of partnering between your product and design people and them? And again, physically, how do these teams come together to make that happen?
Yeah. I mean, I think as you roll out anything that's new, and retail being a newer muscle for us, you bring in team members who have experience in that space and who've built for that before. But with a massive retailer like Walmart, they have a lot of best practices, and so it's a very collaborative experience where you're running different designs and thoughts through the team. They're giving feedback from the merchandising side, what they've seen work, what they've seen not work before. One other change we made based on some of those back and forths is, our supplement lines that we launched at Walmart, they were kind of in unique packaging, these individual sachets for like daily, testosterone support or multivitamin. The guidance there was, it might be a little more anxiety inducing to introduce like a new format. It's something that people aren't familiar with, like maybe stick with the bottle, because people like understand how that works. And then you can always add something in later, but kind of put your best foot forward where you're not creating more anxiety because now someone doesn't know how to take this on a daily basis.
You use the key word in there. My dad was in market research, specializing in department stores for his entire professional career. And I used to remember, as a child, being at my parents' table with their friends who were all from the retail industry or the advertising industry, and hearing them talk. The phrase that was so frequently used is, "Oh, he's a great merchandiser. She's a great merchandiser." I remember my dad and one of his best professional friends talking, "Oh, Adam Gimbel, such a great merchandiser."
Sounds like a great merchandiser's name,
Well,
Adam
yes,
Gimbel.
True. And so
born to merchandise.
I think that's something that, to a lot of folks who are approaching kind of direct brand markets for the first time, they don't necessarily think in terms of classic merchandising. And that's a learning, as you said, a muscle and a learning that needs to. I want to ask you something else that's been very, very prominent, like literally front page news, where front pages still exist, and that's supply chain disruptions. So you're scaling up at a terrible moment in the organization of the global supply chain. Ports closing, factories having difficulty getting people to work because of the pandemic, shipments being disrupted everywhere. What were the scale-up challenges, if any, that you faced over the past year or two as you're preparing for this expansion of the company?
Yeah, I think supply chain is certainly one of those things that everyone is dealing with right now. But I think, as we thought about scale, honestly, because we got out ahead of a lot of the initial supply chain challenges, the big question for us was more around that merchandising and really around like making sure our systems and our inventory management systems were in place from a technical perspective. It's a rather large project to make sure from an inventory perspective you have everything tracked, you have the technology in place, it's hooked up to all the different warehouses. We have now 12 different physical pharmacy locations across the country.
Oh, wow.
So being able to coordinate across our own D2C business plus what we need to supply on the retail side, there's a lot of complexity that goes in there. So making sure we had our systems and fulfillment and operations in place was kind of the first hurdle. Moving into merchandising was the next one, right? How are we bringing these to life? How does that play with online versus in store? And then figuring out, can we create a connection back from retail to our site, right? And that's something that a lot of folks spend time on, right? And it needs to be built into your model. How many of these folks that I'm bringing in that are walking down an aisle and grabbing one of my products are actually going to come back to my site? Are they going to sign up for something? Are they going to buy something else? Are they going to sign up for a subscription? That is really, really critical when it comes back to your modeling and how you think about the LTV of that type of customer and how much you can scale at retail that impacts the rest of your business. So there's a lot of nuance there, and it's actually it's a really critical part of unit economics and understanding just how much you can and want to sell at retail and what should that channel be used for based on kind of the cross-pollination into the rest of your business.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that, but before I do, so wait, the indication that I'm getting from you is that the supply chain disruptions overall, you were prepared for because of things that you had done earlier than this rollout. Was there anything key in how you kind of grew your logistics operation, either internally or using third parties, that kind of prepared you as you look back on it?
Yeah.
That prepared you for what happened during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, it would be unfair to say we haven't experienced our own sets of challenges going through the last couple months, but I will give a lot of credits and shout outs back to our operations team. We have a first-class team that has had to fight through a lot of different types of challenges. If it's packaging, if it's prescription medication, if it's ingredients for supplements, etc. But I think the focus internally on building really a logistics juggernaut from day one has been very, very helpful. We view ourselves as a healthcare technology, a healthcare logistics company that really understands how to get things done. And so certainly our own sets of challenges, but have to give props to the team to navigate a really, really difficult situation and figure out how to make all this work.
Before I leave the brick and mortar retail question, just one other thing. Again, really putting myself in the place of the audience. I would say that pretty much any direct-to-consumer founder who's at least 3 years into business, and certainly 5 years or more, is thinking about brick and mortar expansion. Based on your recent experience, what would you say they should most do to prepare themselves for this? What are the biggest lessons you would impart from your recent experience?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons actually comes back to what we were just talking about with unit economics. And before you're going into retail, having a really clear understanding of where you are now and where you might be at scale. Retail is a fantastic business for some, but the unit economics can be really tough, and it's not for every brand. You need to be comfortable also not owning all customer relationships, like we talked about before. Like that's something that you give away a little bit on the retail side. Someone buys on your website, you get their email, they set up an account, their credit card's on file, right? There's an easier opportunity to get them to cross-sell into something new or different. But at retail, you really give up that ownership. And the value of on an LTV basis is going to be very different if they purchase on your site versus if they purchase in the store. And so that needs to be understood and built into the models, because retail for D2C can make a ton of sense for companies like Ro, but for others it can become a rabbit hole, right? If the unit economics don't work for your business yet, scaling actually puts you even deeper in a hole. If you're shipping a dollar out the door with every box sold and people aren't coming back to your site to buy other stuff, scaling up actually hurts your business. You're losing money with every sale. And so retail should be part of a really thoughtful long-term omni-channel strategy, and can be a really powerful complement to an online business, but need to make sure that it fits into your model now, and actually doing well at retail can continue to accelerate your growth versus hurting you.
So now you're talking about unit economics, but at the same time, you're expanding into services, especially with telehealth. So how do you apply this kind of in a general sense? Because we can't do a graduate seminar right now, unfortunately. But how do you start applying unit economic thinking that comes from manufacturing into a services expansion? And I am thinking about telehealth in particular. So how do you take what you've known in the past and then use it to propel what you're now starting to do in force?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a few goals you have on the retail side, right? One is you'd like to scale sales as much as you can and bring in as many new customers into your ecosystem as possible. And the other is introduce the brand to new people, right? Like there are just some people, there's a fair number of people that aren't going to see your ads on TV, or they aren't going to see your ads in their Instagram feed. And introducing in the retail setting is really, really powerful. And so, what you want to make sure is you're just not hemorrhaging money with every item that you sell, right? If you can break even, if you make some margin, that is a nice win that then starts to power the flywheel, which, the best way to build customer loyalty is to get products into their hands and have them enjoy it and have them come back and talk about it and tell friends. And so we think about those as slightly different, where if a retail purchase happens, that should be margin neutral or make some dollars on that transaction, but then it brings them into the ecosystem. And then our job becomes, how do we explain more about what we do, right? Little insert in the pack driving you to get Roma.com or driving you to modernfertility.com to learn more and try other products and services. And so those two are tightly coupled together, but it's something that everyone who goes into retail needs to experiment with and think about, is how do you take that transactional purchase that happens at retail and parlay that into a relationship with your brand.
So this just occurred to me now, so it has the potential to be an incredibly dumb question, but forgive me in advance. One of the other things that's characterized our direct brand cohort and friends over the past several years is customer service is built in from the beginning. Having that relationship, having that individual relationship, you've got to be able to serve that relationship. Did your existing customer service capabilities port over well into the telehealth expansion, or is it totally different? I mean, does one prepare you for the other, or is this just, apples and oranges?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about our member experience team and the incredible value they add to the brand, right? We have the saying where no one owns the brand, no team owns the brand, right? Every touch point that a customer or patient has with the company is a brand touch point and has ability to build a deeper, more emotional connection with folks. So yeah, our team supports all of the different care verticals and retail. So if it's men's health, women's health, mental health, pharmacy, weight management, retail, the team is equipped to support each one of those. There are specialists that will kind of own each of those areas that have a more nuanced understanding of those businesses, but really well equipped to kind of handle any and all questions coming through.
You would seem, and this is another dumb question.
These are not dumb at all. You're doing great, Randall.
Well, I mean, I love it. I mean, I love it. And if I were still a journalist and writing this up, I would be asking these questions anyway. You're moving out of what is, well, I was going to say you're moving out of what has been predominantly an OTC space into something that's actual real medicine, more in a much more regulated industry. Has that presented any challenges to you as you've gone through the expansion? Or I guess with ED, you were already there. So maybe
yeah, I mean, in many ways, there's more regulatory challenges when it comes to over-the-counter products than there is with RX, because there's clinical studies that have been done on prescription medications. Claims are all very clear. We take a lot of pride going through. We have what we call our Viper process. It's our legal and medical review, and for things that are over the counter, a lot of times that will take more time and effort to research the claims and the ingredients and understand what we are comfortable saying that is both legally and ethically appropriate when it comes to supplements. When it's prescription medication, all of that is laid out in a lot cleaner manner because things have already gone through those clinical studies and there's published papers around them. So team is continuing to learn, but yeah, definitely a different beast there.
Great. We're running out of time, so I want to ask you one final question that we're asking all of the founders we're talking to this year. What's the one thing you know now that you wished you could tell yourself at the beginning of your journey as a founder of a consumer-facing brand company?
So many lessons learned. I think one thing that I've embraced more as the company has grown is really this concept of being comfortable with what you know and what you don't know. Yeah. I think there is a tendency, especially early on, to feel the pressure where you have to know everything. You have to know every answer from an investor, from a customer, from an employee coming in. I've gotten much more comfortable kind of acknowledging where I am an expert and where maybe I can learn a little bit and learn just enough to be dangerous, but then also feel really good about bringing in people who are experts to work on the team and run these functions and really own them in a way that's just not my skill set or my strong suit. So I think kind of getting comfortable in your own skin is a really important quality, because you can get into trouble if you try to pretend like you know everything and you're an expert in all these spaces.
So don't fake it until you make it.
Something like that, yeah.
Rob, this is a really great. I can't imagine a more perfect kickoff to the 2021 Brand Disruption Summit. It's been a real pleasure to have you back on our stage, even though it's a virtual stage.
Yeah.
Our motto is, next year live. So we hope to see you back live, but really appreciate these learnings. Very important. Best of luck as you the growth path.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Randall. Have a great conference.
Great. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.